When my father threatened my future if I didn't kneel at my sister's wedding. The shocking truth. The air was thick with tension as the guests shuffled nervously in their seats, entirely oblivious to the storm brewing just outside the grand banquet hall. It was my sister's wedding, a day meant for joy, but beneath the shimmering decorations and delicate flowers, something darker lurked. My father, usually the picture of calm authority, was an unrecognizable man. His eyes, usually warm, now burned with an intensity that could ignite a wildfire. There I stood, frozen, heart racing, knowing without a doubt that today's innocent celebration could morph into a living nightmare. The crowd erupted in laughter, but it felt like a chorus from the depths of an abyss. I could see my sister smiling, blissfully unaware, while my father's mouth set into a thin, grim line. He was not just some father giving a daughter away. He was the looming specter of fate, ready to cast his judgment on all of us. His voice when he finally spoke echoed in my mind like a gunshot. "You will kneel, or you will lose everything." Just those words sent a chill down my spine. What did he mean, lose everything? The fear clawed at my throat, a heavy lump that blocked any chance of speaking. My hands trembled, the weight of 1,000 unasked questions swirling inside me. Would he disown me? Would he destroy my future? The whispers around me grew louder, curious glances darting my way. People felt the energy shift, and suddenly it was less a wedding, and more a reckoning. My cousin, Jess, leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't have to listen to him. You know that, right?" But her certainty faltered against the might of my father's glare. The tension was palpable. It choked the air out of my lungs. And then, just like that, the music shifted to a slow, haunting melody. It tugged at every sentiment buried deep inside me. I could see my sister's moment turning, the weight of familial duty wrapping around her like tightly wound vines. But what about me? What would kneeling mean? Would I be surrendering my very soul? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the eerie music faded, I was drawn towards the altar, and all I could feel was a growing suffocation in the chest. My father's unwavering stare bore down on me, a challenge and a threat all in one. A bead of sweat trickled down my back as I finally grasped the truth. For him, tradition was more than a ritual. It was a weapon he wielded with ruthless precision. What would I ever gain if I did kneel? Would it truly ensure safety? Or was this a trap? A chain that would bind me forever? Questions raced like wildfires in my brain. But as I stood there, caught in the crossfire of family loyalty and personal freedom, I felt the ground beneath me shift. The stakes had never been higher. One choice could undo everything. As the ceremony continued, the ground tremored with uncertainty. How much longer could this delicate facade hold? And what awaited me if I chose defiance instead? The future teetered on a knife's edge, leaving me in a tempest of doubt. The silence was deafening, almost mocking. I could feel every heartbeat in my ears, a steady thudding reminder that time was slipping away. The altar, now a stage for an impending drama, seemed to loom closer with each passing moment. My sister's radiant smile, though intended for her new husband, felt like a cruel mask to me, hiding the turmoil brewing within our family. Suddenly, the bride turned her gaze toward me. Her eyes were wide with confusion. Was she sensing the shift in the atmosphere? A part of me wanted to scream for her to run, to escape the binds our father had placed around us, but another part, perhaps the more fearful one, wanted to keep her blissfully unaware. This was her day, and it shouldn't be tainted by the shadows of my choices. Just kneel. A voice in my head urged, the very essence of survival speaking over the raw rebellion clashing inside me. But another voice shouted back, full of fire and defiance. "What are you sacrificing?" I glanced at my father again. The intensity in his eyes sparked a wildfire of fear within me. This man could destroy lives with a mere look. Yet I knew he'd done it with words before, too, shaping us into reflections of his will. What if kneeling meant becoming exactly what he wanted? A puppet on strings, dancing for an audience that ached for tradition. That as the officiant began to speak, the words lost all meaning. I could only focus on the mounting pressure in my chest. I needed a way out, a plan. Yet every possible escape seemed to dissolve as swiftly as it appeared. Then I felt a hand slip into mine. Jess was there again, her grip firm, her gaze unwavering. "You don't have to follow him," she whispered urgently. "You can stand tall. You can be true to yourself." Her words cut through the haze of fear like a beacon. A rush of adrenaline flooded my veins. For the first time, I realized this wasn't merely about kneeling or not. This was about standing firm in the face of a tyrant's decree. It was about breaking free from shackles forged from fear and expectation. Uncertainty gnawed at me. The ceremony rolled on, but I fought to drown out the officiant's voice. Was this my only chance to reclaim my future? What if kindness gave way to conflict? What if I lost everything in choosing myself? I was teetering on the edge of a chasm, ready to plunge into darkness or soar into sunlight. I remained fixated on the altar. My father's glare intensified, a storm ready to unleash. The room, once brimming with joy, now felt like a pressure cooker, ready to explode. "Will you allow him to control you?" I asked myself silently, my heart pounding fiercely. "In this choice lies your freedom or your fate." The words echoed around the space. My knees felt weak, but somehow I stood taller than I ever had. I could hear the murmurs around me, uncertain, questioning, judging. The world had become a kaleidoscope of panic and anticipation. Then, out of nowhere, the venue's doors swung open, and an unexpected figure stood silhouetted against the light. Gasps erupted. The emphasis shifted from my turmoil to this newcomer whose presence seemed poised to shatter the fragile equilibrium. My heart raced again, curiosity intertwining with fear. Who dared to disrupt this spectacle? "What are you doing here?" my father hissed, fury etched into his features. The tension swelled, and I could hear my breath in the silence that followed. The answer to that question could alter everything. The figure stepped forward, shaking off layers of the sun's glare, as if peeling back a shroud of hidden secrets. I squinted, my heart leaping. It was Alex, my older brother, the one who had vanished, leaving in the wake of family tensions, an untouchable ghost. The air crackled with disbelief, as though the world around us had burst into flames. "What are you doing here?" my father spat, contempt shadowing his expression. Every syllable dripped with venom, revealing the deep-seated animosity that had festered in our family for years. Alex took a moment, his eyes sweeping over the gathered guests before finally landing on me. There was urgency in his gaze, a silent war screaming beneath an otherwise calm surface. "I'm here for her," he declared, pointing to our sister, as though his words could caress her innocence like a thin veil. "You're out of your mind," my father roared, his face turning a shade of deep crimson. "This isn't about you, Alex. You lost the right to interfere the moment you walked away from us." I felt the weight of my father's words land heavier than a leaden blanket, pressing down on my already frayed nerves. Yet, there was something in Alex's stance, his resolute grounding in the face of our father's wrath, that stirred long-buried hopes in my chest. Igniting a flicker of rebellion, Alex took a step closer to the altar, his voice fierce. "It might not be about me, Dad, but it damn well should be about her. And all of us. You think this is honoring family? There's a prison with your name etched on the walls." Gasps echoed through the crowd. Whispers buzzed like angry hornets, hovering towards the dramatic confrontation unfolding before us. I could feel Jess beside me, her hand tightening around mine, a lifeline in the engulfing storm. "Do not raise your voice at me," my father thundered, fists clenching at his sides. "Someone has to." Alex shot back, voice reverberating like the crack of a whip. What you're doing here is wrong, forcing her to bind herself to an heirloom of your making. My heart raced as I processed his words. His passion wasn't just for my sister's sake, but for all of us, all the unspoken grievances against my father's iron grip. I scanned the audience. Friends and family members, once so sure of their alliances with Dad, were glancing at each other, their faces flickering between support for my brother and fear of our father. Then I noticed my sister fidgeting, light fading from her gaze. Was this too much for her? The altar where she stood wasn't just a platform for vows anymore. It had turned into a battleground for our family's deeply buried secrets and truths that had always been too painful to unearth. "Alex, it's too late," I whispered, panic rising in my throat. "You can't just I refuse to let this marriage, or any other, happen at the expense of someone else's freedom." He cut me off, as if he knew my doubts almost as well as I did. The officiant struggled to regain control, his voice a feeble whisper in the face of our growing chaos. "Please, this is a wedding. We can sort this," but I wasn't listening anymore. The tight grip of expectation had started to fray. With a quick glance toward Jess, my own thoughts began to solidify. What if we all chose to stand together? What if we shattered our father's mold? My stomach twisted in anxiety, but adrenaline surged. The time to act was now. "Stop!" I yelled unexpectedly, every eye snapping toward me, including my father's fierce glare and Alex's intense concern. "Don't you dare!" my father shouted, a storm brewing in his eyes. "You're going to ruin this day." But at that moment, I realized it wasn't just my sister's day. It was every one of our days to reclaim our choices, our voices. I could end the cycle, but first I needed to respond to my father. The grip of tradition felt suffocating. But was I prepared to sever the ties for good? The crowd held its breath, a collective pause hanging heavy in the air. My father's expression morphed, rage contorting his features like a mask slipped from his face. Just moments earlier, he had commanded this event with the authority of a king on a throne. Now, with my defiance, I had turned him from ruler to mere man, vulnerable in front of a sea of witnesses. That I felt Jess's hand tighten in mine, a silent affirmation of support, yet fear seeped into my bones like ice. This was not just my family's history at stake. It was the very fabric of our futures. The tension coiled around me, threatening to snap at any moment. "You think this is a joke?" my father bellowed, his voice echoing in the silence, striking like a whip of thunder. "You think any of this is about you and your false sense of justice? You're making a grave mistake, one you won't easily recover from." His words hit hard, each as sharp as a dagger, and I felt my resolve tremble slightly under the weight of his threat. The flickering candles on the altar were the only witnesses to the brewing storm, casting eerie shadows on the walls like specters of our shattered family ties. "Forget your threats," Alex shot back, his voice unwavering. "What you're doing is suffocating us, and we will not bow down anymore." The crowd began to murmur, a restless wave of uncertainty flowing through them. Some exchanged looks, others appeared queasy. My father was losing control inch by inch, and so was I. "Get out," my father hissed, pointing toward the exit with a trembling finger. "You don't belong here, and you never did. This isn't about you. What if it should be?" The question slipped out before I could contain it, catching even me by surprise. Was it truly out of line to demand agency over our fates? "Your sister deserves better than what you insist. She should be free to choose," I pressed, sensing the weight of 1,000 eyes on us. "No," my father thundered, every word drenched in raw authority. "You think you can defy me? You'll hurt her if you insist on this absurd rebellion. Kneel to your sister, kneel to tradition, or face the consequences." A chill rushed through me, chilling me to the bone. My heart sank as the implication burrowed deep. Did he mean to invoke the family curse, the very legacy that twisted our lives into unspeakable anguish? "Consequences?" I whispered, my voice barely audible against the backdrop of discontent murmuring through the crowd. "You think shaming us will put this all right?" Alex stepped closer, his stance defiant against the looming threat of our father. You won't win with fear anymore, Dad. This family deserves better. She deserves better. The officiant cleared his throat, trying to break through the tension. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to refocus on the ceremony. His eyes darted nervously back and forth, hoping to quell the rising storm. No, I shouted, feeling a surge of energy pulsate through me. This isn't just about a wedding. It's about choice, freedom. It's about who we really are. The crowd exploded with whispers, disbelief and intrigue sparking like fireworks. Enough! My father screamed, veins straining, his face a canvas of fury. The shadows danced erratically as he stepped down from the podium. Eyes locked on mine as I crossed the line, and I sensed the imminent fallout. Would I topple my family dynamic, or would I merely play into my father's hands? I swallowed hard, staring him down. Could I truly bear the cost of this choice? My sister deserved a chance. Perhaps it was worth risking everything. As I stood there, I could sense the chaos brewing around me, fingers tensed, breaths held, hearts racing. In that palpable pause, I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a war that had been brewing for too long. But here came the question that hung heavy in the air, sparking dread and determination alike. Would I lose not only my father but my family in this fight for freedom? What had I just set in motion? The room erupted, voices clashing like metal on metal, but mine curled tightly in my throat, forming a knot of tension. Eyes were still glued to my father, whose rage was electric. His fury charged the atmosphere and set every nerve in my body on fire. I was swimming in the storm I had created. Enough! His bellow cut through the chaos like a siren, issuing a warning that filled the hearts of witnesses with dread. The candle flames flickered wildly, matching the emotions raging inside me. I felt the weight of deep-rooted fears slowly unfurling. The family legacy loomed larger than ever before. Alex took my hand, squeezing it tightly, grounding me just enough to remind me I wasn't alone. We can't go back now, not after this, he whispered, his eyes searching mine. I would have crumbled without his presence. Yet another part of me quaked at the looming shadow of my father. If you think this act of rebellion will protect her, you're mistaken, my father hissed, anger simmering just below the surface. You might even push me to enforce the curse, and you know what that means for all of you. His voice dropped, becoming a cold whisper that sent chills prickling along my skin. I stumbled back, grappling with his words. The curse. The unspeakable consequence that had haunted our family for generations. I steadied myself against the podium, desperate to keep my composure. If that's what it takes, then I refuse to be complicit in this cycle of fear. The assertion felt both liberating and terrifying. A hush fell over the crowd. I could hear individual heartbeats as they awaited my father's reaction. No one dared move or breathe. Faces were etched with a blend of horror and curiosity, fear mingling with a smattering of hope. My father's face twisted grotesquely. He was a predator, cornered yet dangerous. You're playing a game you don't understand, he seethed, taking a step towards me, his presence towering. Every rebellion has its price. The threat hung, dark and heavy. The officiant stammered nervously, trying to restore order. We could perhaps focus on the vows. His voice faltered under the weight of the rising tension. But everyone felt it, everyone believed this was much larger than a wedding. Then let us make it about truth. I cried out, my voice rising, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Let us expose the lies and the chains. If she must marry, let it be on her own terms. Whispers cascaded through the crowd, uncertainty ricocheting like a bullet. My father paused, processing, and for a flickering moment, something sparked in his eyes, vulnerability or perhaps fear. Suddenly he laughed, but the sound was hollow, filled with bitter irony. You think this will end well for any of us? A woman in the crowd gasped, and I sensed from her reaction that my father had spoken the truth. Yet I felt alive. What's worse, a life shackled in silence or a fight that might just set us free? The crowd shifted, an energy building, as I met his gaze with fervor. In my heart, I knew we had stepped past the point of no return. My father, now unfurling, seemed more beast than man, A storm threatening to strike. A distant thunder rumble matched the tension, and then abruptly the power flickered. Candles sputtered, plunging the room into near darkness. Gasps rippled through the crowd like a wave. In that darkness, I could feel the storm of emotions swirling, ready to unleash terror. "Wait," the officiant's voice trembled. "This is not part of the ceremony." Suddenly, an ear-splitting crash echoed from outside, puncturing the fraught atmosphere. Everyone turned, the moment suspended. What could that noise be? What had we unleashed? The air thickened with a suffocating dread. I felt utterly unprepared for whatever awaited us. But in that chaos, I also sensed a flicker of hope. Freedom was shaking loose. It was crawling into the atmosphere, igniting the moment. Could the past be rewritten? Could the truth light our way forward? Or would we find ourselves overtaken by the very storm we sought to escape? As the darkness deepened around us, one thought lanced through my mind. With blinding clarity, what was waiting on the other side of this night? The darkness settled heavily, swallowing the room whole. Shadows flickered and danced as the candles sputtered, struggling against the encroaching void. The faint scent of burning wax hung in the air, mixing with the mustiness of fear that clung to every whisper. What was that? Someone finally broke the silence, their voice quaking. But the question hung unanswered, swallowed by the mounting dread. I felt the buzzing in my ears grow louder, drowning out the muted chatter as evolving whispers swept through the audience. Each expression revealed a struggle between dread and intrigue, the crowd itching to know whether the sound was a mere distraction or a harbinger of something far worse. "Stay close to me," Alex murmured, his breath warm against my ear, yet rising anxiety punctured his calm demeanor. I nodded, squeezing his hand, grounding both of us in this storm. But the sensation of dread gnawed at the edges of my resolve. My father loomed at the center of it all, stillness replacing his earlier fury. His eyes glinted, calculating, betraying a mind already churning with dark possibilities. "You don't know what you're asking for," he warned, his tone low as the flickering shadows cast menacing shapes on his face. "Then show me," I surged boldly, driven by the fire of my defiance. "What's worse than this?" The challenge flared between us, electrifying the air as the crowd took an involuntary step back, forming an unspoken line between rebellion and authority. The line felt thin and trembling, ready to snap. Another crash resonated outside, the sound of breaking glass. Perhaps an icy tendril of fear wrapped around my heart. "We have to get out of here," I blurted, glancing around, but I felt the collective hesitation in the room. Curiosity was a powerful beast, and it lured us into the eye of the storm. "Do you think you can run from this?" My father scoffed, his voice now laced with something deeper, more menacing. "What's outside is nothing compared to what awaits inside. You need to understand your place." Those words hung in the air, ripe with aggression, and a flicker of doubt clouded my conviction. Had I just awakened a sleeping monster? Or was it finally time to confront the darkness that bound our family to this curse? Enough of this. The officiant, desperate for authority, attempted to restore some semblance of order, yet his voice quivered in the wake of chaos. "The wedding, a union, should bond you all, not tear you apart." But this wedding had long since become a battleground. My nerves startled me as I spat out. And at what cost? To silence our truths in exchange for a hollow celebration? Alex's grip tightened on my fingers, as if willing me to contain myself, but the air was too charged now to retreat. Another crash erupted, shaking the building's foundations. Every face twisted with terror, punctuated with mutual apprehension. We were faced with raw fear, and I felt it resonate deep within. How could I fight a storm? How could we survive this? How could I protect my sister and myself? Then came a thunderous explosion, shattering through the walls and illuminating the shadows. It was as if the world outside had caught fire. My father, for the first time, seemed momentarily lost, his brow furrowing as he re-evaluated his next move. But I had already made my choice. "Let them see. Let everyone see," I called out, raising my voice above the chaos. each word bubbling with a desperate strength. We can't hide from this. We'll share our truths, even if it costs us everything. In that moment, the room teetered between rebellion and submission, life and death. It was becoming clearer. Would my father unleash the curse upon us? What terrifying revelation awaited us once we crossed the threshold of this night? As the darkness clamored against us, the atmosphere trembled. The world outside felt doubly sinister, but within me surged a daring pulse united with fear. With the future hanging in the balance, I knew the truth couldn't be buried anymore. And next a light flickered in that thick darkness, as shadows trembled and shuddered. Was it hope, or was it heralding doom? What emerged would reshape everything, unearthing our hidden fates. The blast of sound reverberated through the air, rattling the very bones of the old structure. Everyone froze, tension snapping like a taut wire. A blinding light pierced through the cracks in the walls too bright for this curse-laden space. People shielded their eyes, murmurs replaced with gasps. My heart raced. What was out there? Stay back, my father shouted, his voice booming and laced with terror. Though he had always radiated authority, I now sensed his fear like a palpable thing, swelling in his chest and leaking out. What did you unleash? I yelled, desperation thickening my voice. Alex squeezed my hand, but his grip was tight, trembling. Our eyes met, a silent understanding passing between us, a shared recognition of the nightmare creeping closer. I stepped closer to my father, urging him to see reason. You have to stop this. You can't control everything forever. My chest tightened with every word, as if the air would not let me inhale. Around us, the crowd resembled a wave, a collective entity caught between curiosity and dread. He eyed me like I had just struck a nerve, his calm facade cracking. Control is all I have. The words fell like stones, heavy and final. The audience held their breath, caught in a moment suspended in horror. Then the door burst open, splintering under the force of what came next. A figure emerged, cloaked in shadow. It was impossible to make out their features, but the presence was undeniable. I felt the temperature drop, the air thickening as if mourning for what was to come. Whispers, hushed and trembling, floated through the crowd. Who is that? What do they want? Help us! I screamed, voice breaking as the figure took a step forward. We can't fight this alone. The entity halted, tilting its head just enough for me to sense the weight of its gaze. An overwhelming chill swept through the room. You don't know what you ask. The voice was ancient, layered, like gravel rolling down a hill. I shivered, spine prickling. Enough games. My father barked, stepping in front of me, positioning himself as a barrier. But I saw it, the hesitation hidden behind his bravado. Innocence will suffer if you continue this farce. The figure's laugh was sharp and echoing, drowning out the muffled fears of the crowd. Innocence? What a quaint notion. You're just a pawn, tethered to a legacy you cannot escape. Suddenly, a blinding flash split the darkness, and I cried out as pain shot through my skull. Hands gripped my arms, holding me steady. When the light dimmed, I found myself face to face with the entity, who leaned far too close. It was as if I could feel its breath cold, like winter's bite. What's your secret? I demanded, voice piercingly quiet but trembling with determination. What will it take to break the chains? To end this curse? For a moment, silence enveloped us all. The world outside shrieked in chaos, but within this room, history echoed between us. I could see my father's agitation morph into fear, the tension knotting further. Then the figure's lips curved into a smile, revealing sharp teeth. Truth can be a weapon or a salvation. But tell me, are you ready to pay the price? The audience shifted, eyebrows furrowing in collective confusion and dread. Questions loomed like dark clouds. Who would be sacrificed? Who would dare to speak when the stakes were so high? My breath quickened, and it hit me. What if uncovering our truths would place my sister in jeopardy? Would we pay a grave price for exposure? With all eyes on me, weight pressed against my chest as the shadow spoke. The time has come to choose. What do you desire more? to embrace the truth or shield your loved ones from its repercussions. This was the moment, a telling moment. I glanced at Alex, then my father, measuring the cost in their eyes. I needed to decide what were we willing to sacrifice to escape this darkness, and what fate awaited if I didn't make the right choice. The darkness shuddered once more, foreshadowing the answer. With my heart in my throat, I murmured, "Show me." But as those words left my lips, the world began to tilt. The shadows shifted, closing in from all sides as a disturbing laugh filled the air, drowning out my fears. What choice would lead us to survival, and what horror lay hidden in the truth? The shadows coiled tighter around me, as if trying to snare my very essence. The chilling laughter of the figure filled the room with a sound that dug deep into my bones, echoing off the walls with a sinister cadence. I could feel Alex's grip tightening, his body tense beside me. The murmurs of the crowd faded into a distant hum. All that mattered was this moment, this choice. "Show me," I repeated, my voice stronger this time, fueled by desperation and determination. I had to know what lay ahead, what truth could potentially save us or ruin us all. The figure's smile widened, revealing more of those jagged, glistening teeth, like a predator ready to strike. "Very well, but be warned, a glimpse of truth is a heavy burden to carry." As it spoke, the shadows thrummed as if in agreement, pulsing with a life of their own. And then, as quickly as it had invaded my world, the light exploded again, engulfing me. The stark brilliance forced my eyes shut. For a heartbeat, I felt weightless, suspended in a realm that felt both foreign and intimately familiar. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer in the dilapidated old building. I stood in a vast, eerie expanse, endless and shrouded in a fog that curled around my ankles. Shapes loomed in the mist, indistinct yet haunting. Before I could process anything further, a voice echoed through the haze. "To see truth, you must confront your past." The ground trembled beneath me, and a vision sparked into existence, a memory long buried. I stood in the backyard of my childhood home, sunlight splashing warmth over everything. I was laughing with my sister, her hair gleaming like spun gold. My father's voice rang out, deep and commanding. "Enough games. This is not a playground." Suddenly, the scene shifted. I watched as my father's fury, his unyielding need for control, towered over a younger version of me. "You will understand one day, and you will thank me." I felt the sting of his words like a physical blow. "Father, please, just let us be," my younger self pleaded, desperation woven through every syllable. But the plea fell on deaf ears. The memory flickered, and I was taken to a dim room filled with shadows, a family gathering cloaked in tension. My mother's voice floated back, soft yet filled with regret. "We must protect them. That's all he wants." The echoes of my past twisted, showing me conversations, decisions, and burdens wrapped in secrets. Each flicker of memory revealed my father's iron grip tightening around our family, the manipulation, the fear, and as I relived these moments, a darker truth crystallized. My father was not just trying to protect us. He was suffocating us, sacrificing our happiness for control. As the last memory dissolved into the fog, I was left breathless. The burden weighed heavily in my chest. This legacy was not just his. It was ours as well. The fight wasn't just against an unseen curse. It was against the chains that bound us to our father's choices. The laughter of the figure returned, cutting through my thoughts, snapping the air around me. "Do you see now? The chains of legacy are forged in the fires of fear and regret. Are you willing to break them, even at the cost of your family?" My heart raced as I looked down at my hands, powerless yet determined. "I won't be your pawn anymore," I whispered, the conviction rising within me. The figure stepped closer, the shadows swirling around us, blurring the edges of reality. "Then you must make your choice." With that, the fog began to swirl higher, the ground trembling beneath me. A profound sense of dread wrapped around my heart as I realized that whatever choice I made here could alter everything. I felt my body jolting back, reeling into the familiar space, air hitting my lungs like a punch. The entity loomed beside me, eyes gleaming with a malevolent expectation. Which path will you choose? The truth or the illusion of safety? It asked, the question hanging like a dagger in the air. I was back in the room, the crowd still paralyzed with a mix of horror and curiosity. All eyes were on me once more. Was I ready to cast aside the bindings of my past for a chance at true freedom? Or would I allow my father's fear to dictate my future? My mind raced. Each moment pulsed with urgency, and I knew this was my moment, my choice. But was I brave enough to face the truth? The answer lingered like a breath on the tip of my tongue as the darkness thrummed around us. A firestorm of fear and hope. What would become of me once I chose? The silence in the room deepened, wrapping around me like a heavy blanket. I could feel the weight of every gaze, every whisper of doubt, pressing down on my shoulders. They wanted an answer. I wanted to scream. Choose, the figure commanded, its voice booming, sending vibrations through the air. The shadows danced around it, and I wondered if it lived off our fear, like a parasite feeding on my hesitations. No more games, no more fear, I thought, pushing the trepidation aside. The vision of my past lingered, a haunting specter demanding to be acknowledged. I took a deep breath, rallying every ounce of courage I had. I choose truth. The words burst forth almost defiantly. The crowd gasped as the atmosphere shifted, charged with a supernatural energy. I felt an electric current race through my veins as the shadows began to morph and twist, revealing scenes that flickered like an old projector. I braced myself, knowing that with truth came the unvarnished reality of my lineage. One moment later, I found myself standing outside a grand church, its white facade gleaming under the blistering sun. My heart sank. The sound of laughter mingled with the rustling of silk and lace my sister's wedding day. She was glowing, resplendent in her ivory gown, but behind her beauty lingered that familiar tension, an unspoken heaviness that shimmered like a chill in the air. Remember, my father's voice echoed in my mind, a cold reminder. Unity is a choice. Failure to support your sister today will be viewed as betrayal. His threat had always hovered between us, a shadow on an otherwise perfect day. As I stared, the scene shifted. I saw myself standing at the entrance, dread pooling in my stomach. My father stood just inches away, his icy glare piercing straight through my resolve. You'd kneel before her as a sister or face the consequences. Understand? The painful memories felt like knives, each word, each expectation layered on top of one another until they felt suffocating. My pulse raced as I internalized everything I had pushed aside over the years. My sister's joy was a thin veil draped over a vast chasm of familial control. Would her happiness always come at the cost of my submission? The laughter of the guests faded, swallowed by a cacophony of regret and realization. My heart thudded relentlessly as I faced the ultimate truth. My father's notion of family was a cage, forged in the fires of his own desires. Abruptly, I was thrown back into the present, gasping for air as the figure's laughter echoed again, rich with malice. Do you see how the ties of family can suffocate? Yet you must continue to choose, even as the illusion of safety fades. My throat burned with unshed tears as I spit out the words. I refuse to live in fear. I won't kneel to your shadow, nor will I let it define my future. The air around us shimmered and began to crackle, an otherworldly rift forming, a promise of change or horror. The figure's expression twisted, its excitement palpable, morphing into something predatory. Then let the true reckoning begin. In that instant of foreboding, the ground beneath us quaked violently. The walls of the room around us warped and pulsed, the very fabric of reality threatening to unravel. I grasped onto Alex for support, desperate for a connection amidst the chaos. Look, he shouted, pointing toward the emerging fissure, which framed a swirling vortex of shadow and light. What have I done? I gasped, but the question faded in the embrace of the tempest threatening to consume us. Just then, the laughter faded to a whisper. You have chosen, but the cost will be heavier than you can imagine. Do you wish to pursue this path knowing where it may lead? As a chilling wind swept through the room, I realized the truth had opened a door, one that could not be closed. And whatever awaited on the other side, the only way was forward. Could I confront not only my legacy but also the very essence of my identity? The shadows beckoned. As I moved toward the rift, each step trembled with both fear and hope, questioning yet unwavering. What awaited me on the other side? Was it salvation or doom? The rift pulsed with energy, a swirling mass of shadows and lights that whispered promises of freedom and fear alike. With every breath, the air thickened, infused with memories that clung to my skin like fog. My heart raced as I glanced at Alex, whose eyes mirrored my own wild hope and uncertainty. I had made my choice, yet the path ahead was still cloaked in mystery. That as I moved closer to the rift, time seemed to slow, the edges of reality blurring. I could hear the distant murmur of the crowd, their astonished gasps a faint echo in the chaos we had ignited. My father's presence felt like a storm brewing, his anger palpable even from a distance. But I was no longer that frightened child kneeling under his suffocating shadow. I was a force of my own. "Are you ready?" Alex asked, his voice steadying me even in this whirlwind of chaos. I nodded, each heartbeat a drum urging me forward. Whatever is on the other side, we face it together. Just as we reached the edge, a sudden flare of light engulfed the room, blinding everyone. I shielded my eyes, the brightness overwhelming. When it faded, we emerged on the other side, standing in a vast open field, the sky alive with colors that felt surreal. It was as if reality split into a world unbound by our family's curse. Vibrant flowers bloomed around us, their colors bright against the lush green landscape. The air was fresh, alive with the scent of freedom. Distant mountains stood stoic, majestic guardians of this uncharted territory. The shadows remained behind us, shrouded in the remnants of our old lives. "What is this place?" I wondered in awe. "It's a manifestation of choice," the cloaked figure said, its voice echoing in my mind, embodying the power within each of us. "You sought truth, here it lies, unfiltered and raw. This is where you reshape your legacy, free from the chains of fear." A sense of empowerment surged inside me. Here I could reclaim my past. I could carve out a reality that didn't bow to my father's demands, where my sister's happiness wouldn't come at the cost of my own soul. The landscape shimmered around us, a reminder that change was always possible. "Look," Alex said, pointing toward a glowing orb forming in the distance. As we approached, the orb revealed visions of my past, the moments that forged my identity. I saw my younger self, hesitant yet bright, laughing with my sister in the backyard, our childhood carefree despite the shadows looming over our home. I saw Alex, filling that role of protector, yet stifled by our father's oppression. Those memories were tangled but alive, reminding me of the joy and laughter buried under parental expectations. No longer would I let those truths drown in silence. From this moment forward, I would speak for my sister, stand for myself, for us, all of us tangled in the web of our father's legacy. "Will you embrace this truth?" the figure asked, its gaze piercing yet inviting. "Yes," I proclaimed, my voice strong, reverberating through this sacred space. "I choose to embrace my past, not to be bound by it, but to learn from it. I refuse to kneel anymore. We are not defined by fear. We choose to live." A wave of light surged forward, cascading over the landscape. It ignited each fiber of my being, transforming uncertainty into conviction. I felt Alex's hand intertwining with mine, sealing our journey. "Now open your hearts and minds. You may yet bring light into the shadows behind you." The landscape shifted again, urging us to confront the final challenge. Suddenly, I stood before my father, the familiar intensity in his eyes replaced by an uncertainty that stole his commanding presence. The audience surrounded us, all eyes wide with surprise and dread. The moment of reckoning arrived. "I see now that you're not just a daughter. You're your own person." My father's voice trembled, but there was hesitation, a crack in his armor. "But if you go against our legacy, no." I interrupted, strength surging anew. "This isn't about defiance. This is about freedom. You taught us to live in fear, but truth is our power. It's time to break this cycle. The crowd murmured in disbelief, and I could feel the air shift. This wasn't just about me, this was a collective moment. If I stood strong, they could too. We all felt the weight of your control. But that ends today. I continued, emotion rising, capturing every heart around me. This is not weakness. It's the bravery to reshape what it means to be family. We can build this together or keep fighting until the end. But we deserve to be free. My father's face fell, his defeat palpable as silence enveloped the crowd. The shadows that had loomed over us for so long began to dissipate. A weight I couldn't articulate lifted from my shoulders, and with it came clarity and resolve. Are you ready to mend the ties that bind? Or will you continue to break us apart? The question lingered, challenging everyone as my father stood there, caught in the turmoil of his own making. I saw the weight of his choices, the burden of tradition that suffocated, rather than nurtured. The onlookers softened, glancing toward him. Then me, uncertainty shifting into hope. One by one, murmurs rose, a chorus of defiance against fear. We deserve better, someone shouted, followed by another. Each voice nested into a wave of breakthrough. In that moment, clarity washed over my father's face. The shadows scuttled away, the curse unbound. This was not just my reckoning. It was ours. My sister's smile brightened as she approached me, eyes glimmering with gratitude and resolve. I'm proud of you, she whispered, the warmth of her support wrapping around me. The dawn of change painted the landscape in hues of possibility. I had faced my fears, confronted the shadows, and changed the narrative. The rift that had torn our family apart had been mended, stitching us back together with love, hope, and understanding. And as I took my sister's hand, together we stepped forward into a new beginning, unchained and unafraid, ready to write our own story, a story of freedom, truth, and the unbreakable bonds of family. As we moved to embrace the adventures waiting ahead, I felt a gentle nudge in my spirit. This was the moment all of us had been waiting for, the moment we stepped into our own power. Now, to all of you watching, if you've loved this journey, don't you dare wait another second. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and let's grow this community. Please, flood the comments section with your reactions, your theories about what just went down, because your voice matters. And remember to instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to support the channel in this way. True fans know how important it is to share and connect. Don't miss out.